Well, hi guys, here we are, wisdom number 4, and that means 46 days to go until I'm 50. Yikes. Okay, I'm not thinking about turning 50, I'm thinking about doing this every day, which makes me an absolute pleasure to be around, I can assure you. But I think my wisdom number 4 is probably, it's probably one of my best life lessons for myself, and that is resist, persist. What you resist persists. And I think some other people say where the attention goes, the energy flows, is another way of saying the same thing. But anyway, this is something that I can't even remember when I learnt it. It was long before I had children. And I think it's definitely something that took a long time to sort of enter into my psyche as an essential truth. I think the power of energy is something that we're all very familiar with now. The last 20 years there's been a real evolution in thinking around it. But motherhood for me was definitely the time when I started to understand what the truth of that message of resist, persist means. So to give you a couple of examples, I'll start with the mummy ones. The first one I remember was Lex. I reckon if he was 3, I'd be amazed. So he wasn't talking. He didn't talk until much later than most children. He was communicating, he was determined, but he wasn't really talking and expressing himself in a way that made sense to most people. But anyway, one day he comes down from stairs. We had a year living in Australia. He came downstairs and basically he said to me, "I am wearing pyjamas to school." And my first reaction was, "No, you're not. Go upstairs and get changed. Go and choose some clothes." And then he's like, "Nah," and he's got a little look on his face that shows complete and utter determination. It's a look I'm very familiar with because he's definitely a mini-me. So he's stubborn and he's determined, and I have great admiration for him for knowing his own mind. But he wasn't going to change his ways. So I let him wear his pyjamas to school. Who cares? He's 3 years old, if that, right? But then I think Steve was away and he came back and Lex was all ready to go in his pyjamas, and Steve gives it the whole "no son of mine," because I think in the UK maybe being seen in your pyjamas is probably a little bit different to what we grew up with. There were certainly pyjama moments in our life, going to the fish and chip shop, that sort of thing. And so Steve's like, nah. And I'm like, you know what, babe, we're going to just let him do it. Let him do it. He wants to do it. No big deal. And we didn't resist it. We allowed him to do it, and guess what? Within a week, he didn't want to wear his pyjamas anymore. Jaxie has always been a little bit more easygoing. I don't think it means he's always going to be easygoing, but as a little fella, he was certainly easygoing, except when it came to sleep. Now, he loves his sleep. He still loves his sleep. I think that's a boy that's always going to love his sleep. And but there was a really long period of time where he just, every night, he'd get up and he'd come into our bed. Now, we've always been very free and easy around that, especially when they were little. If they needed to feel safe, we wanted to help them feel safe in whatever way made sense for them. But Jax is one of these kids that kicks you in the head, sleeps on your head. He used to tickle me with his feet. Sometimes he'd wake up for a bit of a chat. He was completely annoying. Anyway, it went on for months and months, and of course we're getting tireder and tireder. But resist, persist, we couldn't stop it. So we were moving pretty soon afterwards, and we just said, let's wait until we move. If nothing else, by the time he's a teenager, he's not going to want to be in his mum and dad's bed, right? So it will be over at some point, so let's just try and get through it as best we can. We moved. He was back sharing a room with his brother. He felt safe, even to this day. That's important to him. So, resist, persist. We didn't resist it, and it didn't persist. And then moving on to a professional experience. So I started my own business in 2006. By the end of that decade, I was really focused on content marketing, and I was too early. I was far too early in the region, in Asia, for this message. It was only really just starting to sort of come into being from a business perspective, even in the US at this time. So I wasn't getting the work, the quality of the work. I wasn't. I didn't find my champion that listened to me, believed me, and wanted to take it forward, right? And I think if you're going to be an entrepreneur, finding a champion to get you going is always a great start. So one day I just said I was getting really down, I was getting really depressed, I was feeling like a failure. I was beating myself up. So I decided to put the word out to say I was looking for work. And in 2013, I started working with Microsoft. And then within a couple of years from that, I went and worked with a content agency called Novus. They're now John Brown Novus. And both of these experiences were absolutely brilliant. They were brilliant from a perspective of the people I got to work with. I've always loved Microsoft. I'll always love Microsoft, the company, the people that work for it. The people within the content agencies or the content industry in Asia, I got to meet them. I hadn't met them, and I probably wouldn't have met them doing what I was doing before. And I got to reconnect with the analyst community after many years before that working with IDC. So it was brilliant. It was really brilliant. But there were many, many days that I was really struggling with it because I didn't want to be doing that. I didn't want to be working for somebody else. I didn't want to be forced or feel like I was being forced, because of course no one can force you, but that 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, I'd already moved out of that way of thinking. I work whenever, I work all the time, or I really don't work, I take time off. So the most important thing I've always valued and been seeking is freedom. So there were times when I really struggled with it and I was definitely resisting it, but I just really tried to keep in mind what I was working towards. And that was to get back on the entrepreneurial path when the time was right, and then go out there and create the business that I wanted with freedom at the cornerstone of what I was going to achieve. And so the way that I was able to do that was to keep blogging, keep creating content, keep proving that content was a valuable way of moving forward. And this is the time when I also came up with the concept of social leadership, because I was seeing a real gap in the market. So I was blogging, I was active on social media. I wasn't just talking about the work that I was doing, I was continuously talking about the future that I was trying to drive people to understand, right? So by doing that, even though I was having my bad days, but by doing that, I was maintaining control. I wasn't losing control of where I wanted to go with my life. So the thing that I say to so many people is, if you're feeling stuck in what you're doing, and if you're not happy with where you are, but you know where you want to be, don't sit in the energy of hating where you are. Move into the energy of taking you where you want to go. And social media is definitely a way to do that. Creating content is definitely a way to do that. And the two obviously mix beautifully together. You can also volunteer for, whether it's sort of charitable work or part of the environmental community and doing really good in the world. People working to save animals, whatever it is that you really care about. And of course, if you've got a skill that could be applicable in the freelance sense, if you want to be a writer, if you want to do freelance, design, photography, any of that sort of stuff, video, then get yourself registered with all of these great freelance platforms like Fiverr.com. 99 Design, there's loads of them, right? Go and find them. Get yourself registered, and out of hours be doing that work. So always be building towards what you want to achieve. So that line, where your attention goes, the energy flows, I think it's a really, really powerful way of saying it. Don't get stuck in the reality of where you are if it's not where you want to be. Be always building to where you want to go. What you resist persists. If anybody else has got a great example of resisting something that meant it persisted, I'd love to hear it. I think it's one of the best life lessons I've ever taken away. Certainly changed the game for me. So there you go. Wisdom number 4: what you resist persists. Believe me, it's true. I know.